Hello everyone, this is Sarah from Crafting and Relaxing, and today I wanted to start with a couple of basic things that keep coming up with questions from people. And as I've started doing a bit of hand lettering, I realized that when we first start in a new area, we need help shopping. That keeps coming up. So I wanted to go over a couple of basic things. First of all, let's talk about adhesive. My favorite, the Hermadotto, which I've gone over in videos before, that comes in this small roller and you buy refills, has been discontinued. So I started to notice it wasn't being stocked in Joann's when I wanted to grab a refill, and then I realized that it is discontinued. So one of my friends has this Mega Runner made by Xyron, who makes some other products that are really great. And she likes it, so I thought I'd try it. If you see, this is a palm size one, and this is a smaller tape runner compared to a lot of them. It's fairly light, and I think it was $13. And then when you purchase a refill, the whole thing pops out and pops back in. So in the world of why would Hermafix be discontinued, it could have been that people didn't like reloading it. So this one looks like it'll be easier to reload. This comes in 1/2 inch and 1/4 inch widths. This came with a half. It's quite a bit wider, you see, than a Hermadotto. So maybe when I buy refills, I'll buy the 1/4, but it came this way and I wanted to try it. Keep in mind that just because it's dots doesn't mean it's removable. This is still a permanent adhesive. So it's a little tougher for people to learn, but the number one thing to think about is if you're trying to put your card face on or layer something, look at it carefully before you glue it down. So take your 2 pieces of paper and get something with a contrast. And when you're trying to line them up, look at, I'll use these two, a corner. So use a corner. Oh, you need contrast behind that. So that you can see how they line up better. Then you have the squaring factor right there, instead of just looking at one edge where you're trying to figure out if it's straight or crooked. So when you're learning, always try and use the corner to line things up, and then set it down, and before you press it down, take a good look at it. So I think if you follow those, even if you have to use a permanent adhesive, you'll be okay. And with a liquid like the art glitter glue that we've talked about before, mine's really low, there is a little bit of movement in it before it sets, so you can straighten things. So adhesive is something I wanted to talk to you about and update you on. And I am pretty happy with this. It rolls nicely. It doesn't tangle or glob, and you can see that it just goes on there very nicely. And then you just lay it down. So it's essentially the same idea as any tape runner. There are tons and tons of tape runners. You can probably even buy one at Dollar Tree. I would say that adhesives can make or break your crafting experience, so that's probably not the area where you want to go super cheap. But if you just wanted to make a few cards, there's absolutely nothing wrong with buying your adhesive at Dollar Tree or using Elmer's or something. Just if you're going to be doing it on a regular basis, you're going to have a much more pleasant experience if you're not fighting. Some of the tape runners, the older ones that are less expensive, when you roll them, then you end up with this stretchy thing that just won't die. So that's why I don't just buy any adhesive. So the other thing I want to talk to you about is cardstock. I have a couple of examples here. Some are easier than others because I don't always keep the packaging. So this is 65-pound, 50 sheets, premium cardstock made by Doris, which is a very common brand. So in the world of brand shopping, you think, okay, this is good. Here's another example, 65-pound, 50 sheets made by Recollections. I think that's the Michaels brand, right? So both of these are a perfectly fine cardstock for layering. See how flimsy that is? They're perfectly fine for layering. They would be great for cutting things out on your Silhouette or your Cricut when you have a cut file. They are terrible if you're trying to use them as card bases. And I know you don't have the right angle to see, but let me show you an example. Okay, so when I hold this, I try and hold this piece of paper straight up for you. I really can't get it, okay? This is Marshmallow Cardstock made by Basil, and it is sturdy. You hear the difference? So 65 pound has its place, but it is not something that is a staple necessarily. So you have to think about what you're going to be doing and what's important to you. The other thing to note is these 50 sheet packs, I paid $2.47 for one of them and $2.50 for the other. And the reason I bought different brands and different prices was the Recollections brand that I bought the black in. When I picked up the white in the store, it wasn't white enough for me. I knew that it was going to make me crazy, so I just put it back. But then when I was at a different store, the Doris one was a truer white, and so I purchased it. And at the time I was doing quite a bit of cutting on the Silhouette, so that's something to keep in mind. So those have a purpose. Now here I have another example. Let's see what I can do to help you see this. That's not going to help. This, there you go. This cardstock has some texture to it. Okay, so this cardstock is pretty terrible for using with a Silhouette. I can't speak to a Cricut for sure, but I know with a Silhouette, when you get into textured cardstock, it just doesn't turn out as well. I like these cardstocks because I do an 8x8 album of all the quilts that my mom makes, and I like to have textured cardstock in there because I mix in fabric and other things, and I just think it makes it a little more fun and less papery. So I use a lot of textured colored cardstock in that. Here's another one. This is a Basil paper, and it's nearly exactly the same as that, just has a slightly different texture. This is not as heavy as the Marshmallow cardstock. Marshmallow, I think it's not a pure white, and it's a very different weight. I would guess this is 100, easily 110, maybe more. It's interesting because it doesn't say on the paper, and when I Googled it online, it talked about heavy. It was a heavy weight. Be careful when you see heavy weight on something and purchase it, because that doesn't necessarily mean, I'm sure some of these other 65-pound ones say heavy on them too. So here's white. Here's a very slick cream colored one, and then a pink version of a gray. And what I wanted to show you was, I don't remember if I made a video about this card, but I think I posted it on Instagram. This one is made with the same paper as the gray or pink. It's not 120 pound. It might be 110. But what I did was I layered the front of it with several layers, so it stands up just fine. It's a very sturdy card. Keep that in mind when you're making your card bases. So here's another example. If you want your card to stand up nice, you can't use 65-pound cardstock unless you're going to be layering up. So as you're shopping, don't hesitate to walk down the aisles in Michael's or Joann, anywhere that has a loose paper rack, and feel the different cardstocks and grab them and hold them out, right? Hold it out horizontally and see how much of a droop it has. This Basil Marshmallow doesn't droop much at all, whereas the 65-pound papers, they virtually curl, okay? So I know that's hard to see at this angle. So go down the aisle and think about it. If you're layering or you're cutting stuff out, you can use the thin ones, but for your card bases, you're gonna want something. If you're gonna put in a lot of work, you're gonna want something that stands up nice and isn't droopy. So just think about that. At this time, I do not have a favorite. I don't have a recommended. I'm using some stuff up and I've been experimenting. I heard somebody talking about the Marshmallow basil cardstock, so I bought some. I do like it. I've heard a lot of people talk about Neenah, Neenah, and Neenah Solar White, so I might check some of that out. What you need to figure out is if you're going to be somebody who layers a bunch of paper and printed papers, and in that case your cardstock isn't as crucial. For either one of these, your cardstock wouldn't be as crucial. Even with this is just acrylic paints. But if you're going to stamp images, you do not want this textured cardstock. If you're going to stamp and color, then the finish on your cardstock and the thickness of it is really important, because otherwise your paper will pill up, kind of rip apart, and your images won't come out nice, especially if you're trying to use alcohol markers or something like that. So I definitely noticed when I used the 65-pound cardstock with those. So that's it for paper and adhesive tonight, and thank you so much for watching Crafting and Relaxing. Don't forget to subscribe, and I am getting ready to do some basic card making videos, so that's why I'm going through the shopping concepts to kind of get you started, so that when we sit down to make a card, you have an idea of why I'm choosing different things. It just depends. There's not one perfect cardstock for every single thing, I don't think. Okay, thanks. Have a great night.